I'm in a Revit view, and in Revit, different views can have different settings. So you see that what you could have in a project would be like quality assurance, quality control views that have different settings to show you the different time of day, and get the appropriate sun and shadows in your interior. When I look at the one that's I've labeled as 1030, if I look at the sun settings, you can see that what I've got there is a setting that stores these values: 10:30 a.m. on the 17th of February. And when I launch Enscape, so if I go to the Enscape tab, that's an add-on program, but I can then take the values from the view that I'm in, and the photoreal view that I get from Enscape would show me, the appropriate photorealistic representation of the room. And there's a live connection, so when you change something, for example, turning on and off furniture or something like that, it would update in Enscape view. There's the interior of the building, and when you start Enscape, it has this little help menu on the top, WASD. So W on your keyboard would be walk forward, A, move to the left, D, move to the right, S, move backwards. If you hit the E key or the Q key, E will take you up, elevate if you like, Q will take you down. On the right side of the help menu, the M key will show you a little map so you can see exactly where you're standing, where your camera is inside the building. And then I'll be using the look around, so I'm using the left button on my mouse just to turn the view. Point being that I can navigate and see the interior of the room and set it up the way that I want for my light study. So by default, you'd be in something called fly mode, where you can move all the way through the building and nothing stops you from moving. If you use the space bar, you can see that you can toggle to walk mode. And if we type in K for keyframe editor, or K to create a keyframe, I'd then be able to create points on the whole day sun study movie that I want to create. So if I clicked on the actual keyframe, you see I've got one of one. I've only got one keyframe in my movie at the moment. And if I go back, that's me actually going back to the keyframe editor, where I'm able to see my keyframes. Right, so I click on add keyframe to add another keyframe. It's on top of the one that's already there. So if I click again, I want to make sure that I'm now on keyframe 2 of 2. And I'll be able to change the timestamp to change the duration of the movie. So since this is the final keyframe in the movie, if I set that at, say, 1 minute, that's me setting the overall duration of the movie. And then what I'll be able to do is adjust the time of day. So I'm going to do apply. That's the duration of the movie. If I click on the arrow to go back to the beginning, so I'm going to click on back to keyframe 1, and I'll be able to make changes. So under time of day, I'm going to set that for early in the morning. This is me just dragging to get the time. If I set that at 6 a.m, if I then go to the second keyframe, and for the second keyframe, I want the time of day to be 8 p.m. So you can see that as I adjust it, I'm seeing the different sun positions between 6 a.m. in the morning and 8 p.m. at night. It's a 24-hour clock, so 20 hours. And then I have to remember to, if I've made any changes, to click apply to save the changes. I'm going to adjust the field of view. This would be like on a camera going to a wider angle. I'll set it to something about 70 degrees, so I'm seeing the light source, and I'm seeing some internal walls the way that I want to see them. I'll be able to compare them to photographs. Click apply, and then if I click on back, that's me going back to see this. So I've now got 2 keyframes. I've got an overall duration of 1 minute. And just to show you, any path that has been set up, you can save it with a unique name. So I could have several different ones to explore the building. The one I'm going to create is to look at the interior 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. and it's really a solar study. I'll give the date. That was coming from the Revit view, 2/17/2020. I can say render the video and give that a name. And so the significant difference here is the time that it takes. I've done projects where it may take days to produce an animation, because you have to adjust for things like are you indoors or outdoors. So here what I'm actually doing is rendering the movie live, and I don't have to worry about things like different exposure for inside or outside or for different times of the day, because the product does that automatically. I'm going to let it render, but just to be clear, I speeded up the time of rendering by a factor of 20. So what you're seeing at the moment is, the sun comes up, comes into the room, and it actually took 20 times longer than what you're seeing on the screen for the progress bar to go all the way from the left to the right. But I thought it was worth showing you that this is really very fast. Also, if you interrupted it by hitting the escape key, it would save the movie up to that point. You don't lose, what you've already produced. So I can see that, the majority of the light that I'm getting is kind of early morning, up till about noon. And then later in the day, there's not many changes because I don't have sunlight coming into the room. And then as I go into the evening, you'll see that the interior lights become more evident. There's not a way of turning off the interior lights in Enscape, so you do that in Revit by either replacing them with objects that don't have a light source. You can't, though, just turn them on and off. They'll always be on in the Revit mod, in the Enscape view. So it's almost done. We've gone into evening. It's dark outside. All my interior lights are now showing. And that is so much faster than what I used to have to do in the past. Now, because I was able to save the camera path, it means that in any session, if I want to, I can load the camera path and bring it back into my project again. So if I had even separate models of the same interior, I could load the same path in order to be able to look at options, or I can use design options in Revit. So just to show you, if I want to, I could pick on the path that I'd saved and bring that in. I'll just switch back. So that's the finished movie playing at the 30 frames a second. What I did is I just added the date and the time so that you get an idea of how the interior is being changed. It's a whole new level of appreciation of what the lighting conditions are inside any space that I want to look at. And like I say, I could have as many of those movies saved as paths as I want, and then review them after I've rendered them. So most of the light in the room early in the day up to about 12 o'clock, and then a period where nothing changes very dramatically, and then into evening and night time. And in the background, if there was a setting sun or a moon in the sky, you would see that in the background environment. There's also an option in Enscape now where you can render out 3D views, including ortho views, and save them as simple image files. So all I did was render out 4 of them as a batch process and then add the date so you can see what the time was for the condition that you're looking at. Then this would be the actual apartment where I can validate the results that I'm generating against what I can actually see and measure in the apartment.